Just weeks after the midterms, now new leadership in place at the Republican Party of Wisconsin. Last weekend, the party's executive committee picking longtime strategist Brian Shimeen as the new state chair. Shimeen replaces Paul Farrow, who decided against seeking a full 2-year term. And for the first time in years, the chairmanship will no longer be a volunteer position. Brian Shimeen joins us now. Brian, like always, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Congratulations.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
State Democrats have a paid chair.
Right.
Republicans now going in this direction. Is this acknowledging in some fashion that Republicans need to close the gap in fundraising?
To some extent, probably. There's been talk about having a paid chair for years, several years back. There's been chat about this. Democrats have had a paid chair, as you know, for a long time. So I think this was probably just accepting the reality that if you're going to be a chair of a state party with in a state of 6 million people, in what also, as we go forward here into this election, another election year and 2 years, a lot at stake. Wisconsin on the presidential side will probably be one of 5, 6, 7 states that get attention, and also with the Republican National Convention coming here to Milwaukee. A lot on the line, and so it's worth doing. I'm glad they did it, and I'm glad to be serving.
Looking at the midterms, some wins, some losses for Republicans, a typical Wisconsin result, right? What role, curious, when you look at the governor's race, for example, and the loss, what role did the state party play in that?
Well, I think we're doing a deep dive now, number one. I mean a deep, deep dive like we've never done before to look at the election, look at the candidates, how the primaries affected things, voter ID. We're taking a look at every piece of that. And that's part of being a new chair for me is I'm insisting that we go as far as into the weeds as we can.
What do you want to find out
So
from
we'll
that?
do that. Well, frankly, look at turnout patterns, look at issues that worked, maybe didn't work for us, what worked for the Democrats, not for them. So it's not going to be, there's going to be no whitewash of things that happened. We're going to hold folks, under the light a little bit and say what happened here, because I don't like to come out of these election cycles. I always say you can learn something new in every election cycle. 2022 was not like 2020, was not like 18 or 16, and won't be like 2024. I want to learn from this cycle, move on, enhance where I can, and win.
Tim Michels said in a post-election interview that state Republicans are years, maybe decades behind Democrats in some cases in how campaigns are run across the state. Is that a fair assessment?
I don't agree that we're decades behind, but as I say, I want to take a look at this election. There are things that I can think of that I want to improve. And so I want to look at this election, well, certainly in some of the targeting and some of the list work and things like that. We've always been competitive. Actually, one of the interesting things about this is that we have now had 10 elections since 2000. So 10 elections in 22 years where the margin statewide in this state of 6 million people has been under 30,000 votes. 10 elections in 22 years. That's statistically amazing. Actually, it was that many. I want to be on the top side of those margins. So we're going to take a look back historically, take a close look at 2022. If there are things that need to be fixed, I'm going to fix them.
Let's look ahead. There's no rest for the weary in terms of campaigns here in the state of Wisconsin, 2023, 2024. What is the party doing ahead of the state Supreme Court race, and how critical is this for the state party?
Absolutely critical, the Supreme Court race. Look, I said to some folks this week, a couple different groups this week, because it's not just a court seat, it is the majority on our 7-member court with Pat Roggensack, Justice Roggensack retiring. So I've told folks everything's on the line. We're certainly going to let our people know how important this election is, and I will tell you right now, there will not be a conservative or Republican voter in this state that won't know the stakes of what happens in April, and I'm going to make sure of it.
Let's talk about former President Trump. Broadly speaking, coming off the midterms, what we've seen when you look at a statewide picture, right? Does he help or hurt the Republican Party of Wisconsin at this point?
Look, I've told folks we've had 2 very close elections with Donald Trump at the top of the ticket here in Wisconsin, again, both under 30,000 votes. So Donald Trump certainly is a vote driver here in Wisconsin. He's been very good for the grassroots. I've said to people on the issue of the presidential race, look, if Donald Trump is the candidate, fly the flag, put out the yard sign, support whoever your candidate is in the Wisconsin primary.
And you would do that?
Well, what I'm saying is that everyone, if they're going to support Donald Trump, go do it, but have a second choice. And to other folks, we've had Governor DeSantis in the state already, as well as the governor of Virginia. Nikki Haley's been in the state. And I say to those people, if you're for any of those folks, fly the flag, put up the yard sign, but don't say you won't vote for Donald Trump, because he could end up the nominee. There's a way to be into both places there, and we will be.
An incredibly busy first week at the helm. We appreciate you making a couple minutes for us. Brian Shimeen, the new chair of the Republican Party of Wisconsin. Thanks so much.
Thanks for inviting me.
Up next, Kent Wainscott standing by on his 3 decades covering Wisconsin politics.